Hey team, Scott again. I decided to do a video about the discussion workshop this week on epistolary writing. Pretty sure I said that right. I'm going to stick with letter writing henceforth. I don't want to seem like I'm uneducated. Made it this far being uneducated. I had issues with this week. Not so much on the nonfiction side, but on the fiction side. I'll get there. So I would like to apologize. As Emily Dickinson apparently said, most letters or forms of translation in this, you always start out with an apology. So I'm going to apologize for all of you that found some correlation between the two that was functional, but I didn't, and I'll explain why later in the video. So diving straight into it, when I began the reading through the module resources, it was a little daunting. I felt like it was jumping about, not really making a whole lot of sense, and then I started making correlations to my own life. And I want to start out by saying I did like how it put guidelines on a letter. Granted, just like with everything else in English, all guidelines aren't met all the time. However, there were some pretty, tangible things you can look for. The first thing that really kind of excited me that isn't a big deal anymore in the era of text messages or email. It does in a little bit, I'll get there. But at one point in the reading, it talks about the mystery with letters because, if I wrote a letter and I sent it by post or I sent it by Joe Schmo next door was heading to the next town over, there was always the more likely chance that letter could get lost. And with it, whatever secrets I was trying to give to a person that I had a relationship with, something that of dire importance that was never going to reach. And to me, that's something that's going to hold emotion. And to the person that is possibly waiting on a letter, it carries a lot of emotion. So that was a very good point. Now, the closest I have to that is when my wife doesn't answer my text message in 5 minutes, and I think that she's dead. So I guess it kind of correlates, but it's not the same romantic appeal. They were private. In our technological age, yes, things are private, but there is the bigger chance of them not being private. Letters were very intimate. And it was a secret. So that was meant to be that function, which goes along with that. If something's private, it's usually because it's emotional. Whether it was anger, sadness, you were apologizing. Apparently, that is a very big part of letters. They were full of emotion. A letter to a loved one, a letter to somebody you want to be a loved one. And usually emotions that run that deep, you want them to be private. So those two kind of go hand in hand. And then, of course, the other big one, which still kind of goes with emotion, is loss. Expressing your emotions as they pertain to loss. So I found a lot of correlations. I'm still young enough. I'm not even 30 yet. I got a year before I feel old. Letters were a big deal when I was in high school and before that. Plus, being a military brat, that was my mom's go-to. Every time that my family picked up and we moved and I had to leave the friends I had made for 4 years, she was like, "It's okay, you can write them letters." So letters were a big thing to me. Now, one thing I didn't really agree with until I had to step outside of the box and kind of make a way to relate it was how they said that Adam's definition was that they were not to be kept. A whole part of letters was that they were to be destroyed. They were for the receiver's eyes only, and then they were to be just gotten rid of. I don't really see that because a lot of us tend to hold on to letters. And for that, right here, I have a crap ton of letters. I'm not going to make this, an hour-long thing. But this one's really important to me. This is my dad writing to me from I don't think I got too far into that, but when the towers got hit in '01, my dad was a firefighter, obviously, and he was gone December 23rd. They weren't supposed to take him till January 3rd. So me and my sister, my brother didn't know. And then all of a sudden he got a call in the middle of the night. He was leaving early, and they woke us up, and I couldn't believe what was happening. It was the most devastating thing in the world up to that point. Anyway, so a letter from my dad. Hey, Scott, thanks for the letter. I'm so happy to hear you guys are helping your mom. Keep up the good work at home and at school. Congratulations on making the jazz band. Boy, am I proud of you for putting so much effort and dedication towards school and drums. What is this about an overnighter with your girlfriend and her parents? Is your mom crazy? Smiley face. Before emoticons. First off, I'd like to point out that is the whole first paragraph and there wasn't a single apology. But I still consider this a letter. So obviously rules were meant to be broken. I heard you guys got a pretty bad snowstorm a little while back. Did you have to miss any school? Speaking of missing school, your mom had already told me about the vacation we took in October was changed from unexcused absence to excused. I know that took a little worry off of her mind. Well, I got the package on 28 January 2002, so it took about 6 days to arrive. The Army has taken over, and they have a better handle on mail than the Marines did. When I first got here on 30 December, there weren't many folks here except Marines, Special Forces, and us. Our job was to establish and maintain the airfield for aircraft operations. All aircraft landed at night due to the high threat of surface-to-air attacks from the Taliban forces hiding in the area. A few days ago, we started doing both day and night aircraft ops, so the threat must have decreased. Like I wrote in your sister's letter, time seems to go by real slow. So it seems like it's going to take forever before I leave. I'm keeping my eyes open for little trinkets for you and Liana. So far I got some Afghanistan money. Around the airfield are several shot down jets and Russian helicopters. We are surrounded by minefields and hear explosions daily. I will tell you more of the things that have happened here when I get home. Keep up the good work. You are making me so proud. I miss you and love you, Dad. So, I would have been 15 when I got that letter. My dad doesn't say I love you very often. Usually, he's either drunk, and in a good way, he's not an alcoholic, or it's a really intimate setting. And that letter scared me at 15. My dad always hid the military from me, so that was a lot more information than I had ever gotten, and it met all these requirements, and it's something that I've held on to because it reminds me of the things he went through, and that even though he was going through all of that, he still took the time to tell his 15-year-old son he was proud of him. So I don't agree with that you're not supposed to keep letters. The closest I'll come to agreeing with that is that you hide them. They're private. I have a cigar box, and it's full of letters and trinkets and everything else. It's not locked. It's not hidden. My wife doesn't go into it. It's not like I have letters from other women, but it's mostly family members. But it's not public either. So I can see a line there, but to clear-cut say that you're not supposed to keep them, I just can't get behind that. Now, another thing that I did find interesting was how they said, and I'm going to butcher this word just so we're clear, spatiotemporal, which I guess is time and space. Basically, the point was made that for letters to truly have the effect they were supposed to, there had to be some separation. And letters between people that don't have separation, therefore, don't really have any meaning. And I found this kind of funny because I went to high school in a time where, text messages weren't big yet. And a lot of groups of friends carried composition notebooks, and you would pass it from person to person amongst classes and write letters to each other. And it's true. Even though we were doing that, it really carried no importance, other than we were in high school and we would say some things in there that we probably shouldn't have said. But there was no reason to consider that a letter in the confines that this is talking about, like my dad's. So I can get behind that. But now we're going to get into where I have issues. Genres are essentially literary institutions or social contracts, so obviously Sheldon Cooper would be all about this because it's a social contract, between writers and a specific public. Frederick Jameson. I am all about that. If I tell you I'm a horror writer, and then I put out something that's put in a horror genre, and it turns out to only be suspense, then I would hope that they come and pitchfork me. That's how I feel when I read a book. Don't tell me it's one thing, and then when I pick it up, it's something different. Same with movies, anything. When it comes to art, people are so passionate about the art that they feel a relation to that you can't really mislabel that because it's going to cause a lot of problem. Now, where I have a problem with the letters, I have actually read 2 books that I guess would be considered epistolary. The Perks of Being a Wallflower, one of my favorite books. I do love that book. And Damned, which is by Chuck P. I always butcher his last name. Same guy that wrote Fight Club. These were both great books. One a comedy, one's more serious. The writing was amazing. The content was amazing. However, if we're going to put all these rules on letters and we're going to say that, hey, for this to be a letter, it needs to fit A, B, C, D, boom. How can that fit in fiction? Now, that's not me saying that these books didn't do it, but they're never going to carry that emotion. And I know you're thinking, well, all books say things that don't carry that emotion. But where I have an issue is a letter is tangible. You put a letter in a book, that is tangible. That is something that was supposed to be private and to somebody else. It's not real. When I'm reading a book, it's like I'm a fly on the wall looking in on their life, and it's all in my imagination. As soon as you put a letter in a book, you've given me something tangible, and then it takes me out of it. It's not the same. If you take that same letter my dad wrote me, and you call it fiction, and you put it in a book, it's not the same. So I really don't see how we can keep the same criteria for fiction and nonfiction when it comes to letter writing, as far as the effect, I guess, because I don't think it's possible. And I think because it's tangible at that point, you know, when we read a book, we're reading the words to get into our imagination. But as soon as we call it a letter, it's not only doing that. It's, hey, the person put this here, but that's not true, and this isn't real. And to me, that just takes me all out of the loop. So there are things that you have to do, which was in the second piece that, you know, we were supposed to read. Having clear voice, especially if we're talking about letters between 2 people. Nothing worse than it's like, man, it seems like the same people wrote each of these letters, even though one's male and one's female. And that can ruin it too. But in my opinion, the fact that you have something tangible in front of you, and it's supposed to be a letter, or even a journal entry, I can't get behind it using the criteria that we're being told here. Because I told you, I've read both these books and I love them. But if you're going to tell me that I need to go off of this criteria, those books don't meet it. Because it's never going to carry that same emotion. So that's enough for part 1. Part 2, talking about history. I think vantage point is the most important thing. Nobody can ever tell the full truth. I mean, it was said right there, you know, you get the best truth that you can out of a person, and sometimes you have unreliable narrators. So then you have to be able to discern between the truth and not. So my first thing when I'm talking about history is understanding is as important as not understanding. And by that I mean the fact that I don't understand something that happened in history just means that we've evolved past it. And is that really a bad thing? I don't think it is. Now, obviously, the next thing that needs to happen is research. I mean, we're all graduate students here. We get that. That's why I have the laptop that you're watching me on, and I have, boom, the computer right there. Because I hate having to minimize screens. So I go from one to this one to do my research so that I can keep reading. But I think the biggest part of my process is I have to reach a point where, and I put it into words, it's either relation or disbelief. And by disbelief, I don't mean that I discredit it. I have to reach a point where I can either relate somehow to what happened in history, or it is so far from where we're at now that I disbelieve it enough that it sticks in my head. So that the next day when I go to work and something happens, I can be like, well, you're not going to believe this, that centuries ago, this would be how this went. And they'd be like, oh, wow. I have to reach that point. I have to get through the not understanding enough to where I can have a level of disbelief or relation. And then that helps me carry the knowledge, in my tool belt, as I'll call it, for the rest of my life. If I don't reach that point, then probably by the end of the class, I'm going to forget it. So I realize this was a long video. I'm sorry. I'm going to try and put some key notes at the bottom. If you made it to this point, it really doesn't matter. But thanks for listening. Hope everybody has a great week.